Hey everyone! If you're learning French, you probably know exactly what it feels like to hit that intermediate B2 plateau. It is incredibly frustrating, right? You can communicate, sure, but you're kind of missing that sharp professional nuance you absolutely need for high-stakes environments. Well, today, we are breaking right through that ceiling. We're diving into expert translator and educator Sally Osatin's comprehensive guide on how to transform your French from that B2 plateau all the way to C1 fluency. And we are tailoring this specifically for the TEF and TCF exams. So, if you're aiming for immigration or higher education in a francophone country, this explainer is exactly what you need. Let's get into it.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to demystify the TEF and TCF exams, master the speaking and writing tests, cross that B2 to C1 bridge, and then wrap things up with some essential connectors and study habits.
All right, Section 1, Demystifying TEF and TCF. So what are these tests? Basically, the TEF and TCF are the official gatekeepers. They evaluate non-native French proficiency, and they are absolutely essential for immigration to Canada, Quebec, or France, or if you want to enter higher education over there. Now, while they do test listening and reading, today we are laser-focused on the active skills, speaking and writing. Why? Because this is where candidates need the most strategic guidance. It's exactly where that jump from B2 to C1 is most visible to an examiner.
Now, if we put them side by side, at first glance, the TEF and TCF look pretty different. TEF has 2 oral and written tasks, while TCF has 3. The timings are a bit different too. But listen, here is the absolute secret to your preparation. Despite those structural differences, the core linguistic requirements are fundamentally the exact same. The examiners for both tests, they are hunting for the exact same things. They want vocabulary richness, grammatical mastery, fluidity, and your ability to construct a really persuasive argument. Master those core things, and you master both exams.
Moving right along to Section 2, Mastering the Speaking Test. Okay, so both of these exams follow a progression that basically tests your ability to function in the real world. Think of it like leveling up. Task 1 is just about introducing yourself or asking some basic questions. Easy enough. Task 2 steps it up into a simulated dialogue. You might be getting information or trying to convince a friend to do something. Then Task 3 is the heavyweight, expressing and justifying a highly structured personal opinion. The big takeaway you need to remember here, examiners want natural, confident communication. They do not want to hear some rehearsed, robotic monologue you memorized. They want to see how you react on your feet.
Picture this. You're sitting across from the examiner, and they just look at you and say, Parlez-moi de votre dernière expérience de voyage. Tell me about your last travel experience. Or maybe they slide a classified ad across the table for a rental apartment, reference 6723, and tell you to call and ask questions about it. These are totally authentic, spontaneous scenarios. You have to navigate them without a script, and you need to show politeness, clarity, and real precision.
So when you get to that persuasion phase of the dialogue, Task 2, you really need a solid game plan. You aren't just listing off features, you are actively negotiating. You want to introduce the idea naturally, explain exactly how it fits the other person's needs, and then hit them with 3 to 5 distinct arguments. Think financial, practical, or health benefits. But crucially, you absolutely must anticipate their objections. When that examiner pushes back, a C1 candidate doesn't just freeze up, no way. They actively reassure the examiner and smoothly propose a concrete next step. Something like, hey, let's just schedule a visit.
Let's jump to Section 3, Acing the Writing Test. Just like speaking, the writing test scales up in complexity. Task 1 is basically your warm-up, a short, informal message to a friend, maybe an email or a postcard, hitting around 60 to 120 words. Task 2 requires a formal or semi-formal letter, bumping up to about 120 to 150 words. And finally, Task 3, the main event, an argumentative essay of 250 words or more. And listen, across all these tasks, you're being scored universally. They're looking at the relevance of your ideas, your structure, your grammatical range, and your strict, and I mean strict, adherence to formatting and word counts.
And speaking of formatting, let's take a closer look at the formal letter. Guys, these formatting rules are totally non-negotiable. You must include an object or subject line. You have to use a formal greeting, an introduction, 2 to 3 body paragraphs, and a highly specific, polite conclusion, the classic formula de politesse. Honestly, getting this strict structure right before you even start worrying about your fancy vocabulary is an incredibly easy, guaranteed way to secure points. Do not leave these marks on the table.
Which brings us to Section 4, the B2 to C1 bridge.
Let's look at the contrast principle in action. Say a B2 student is trying to convince a friend to rent an apartment. They might say it is pas cher, not expensive. I mean, it's correct, but it's pretty basic, right? Now, a C1 student upgrades this to un loyer particulièrement compétitif, a particularly competitive rent. That right there demonstrates a massive shift. You aren't just memorizing bigger words for the sake of it, you are using precise, professional terminology that completely elevates the entire tone of your argument.
Here's a brilliant real-life case study from a student essay on the benefits of reading. The B2 phrasing was entraîner le cerveau à avoir des habiletés, to train the brain to have skills. The C1 correction, it literally just changes one verb. Entraîner le cerveau à développer des habiletés, to train the brain to develop skills. The C1 difference isn't about using the most obscure vocabulary you can find. It's so often just about recognizing weak generic verbs like to have or to do, and swapping them out for highly precise action verbs.
And we definitely have to talk about connectors. They are a huge stepping stone. Take the word donc, therefore. It is arguably the most overused connector by B2 students. Honestly, we are all guilty of leaning on it too much, but it just makes a paragraph feel flat and repetitive. By simply replacing it with c'est pourquoi, which means this is why, you elegantly elevate the whole sentence. It creates a much stronger, much more sophisticated cause and effect relationship, which is exactly what examiners are actively looking for when they hand out those C1 scores.
And this brings us to a really massive revelation from Salio Sassanet's guide. Reaching C1 does not mean you have to change your underlying ideas or completely rewrite your sentences from scratch. Actually, scratch that. It's more like performing minor surgery. It's all about local corrections. You just identify the exact word, verb, or connector that lacks a bit of nuance, and you replace only that specific element. You are executing the exact same ideas, just with surgical linguistic precision.
Finally, Section 5, Essential Connectors and Habits.
You really want to map out your high-level connectors by their function. Instead of just saying firstly, hit them with tout d'abord. Il convient de noter que. First of all, it should be noted that, boom. To add a point, drop the basic A and use de surcroît, furthermore. To contrast, swap out mais for néanmoins or toutefois, nevertheless. Using these correctly is literally the absolute fastest way to showcase C1 level nuance in both your argumentative essays and your spoken opinions.
But hey, the flip side of the coin is conversational fillers. While your essays absolutely need those formal connectors we just talked about, your simulated dialogues need to sound human. If you speak like a textbook in the oral exam, you aren't going to get a C1. You need to sprinkle in natural fillers like écoute, listen, tu sais quoi, you know what, figure-toi que, imagine that. And with a bit of genuine French attitude, franchement, honestly. Doing this makes your spoken French sound incredibly natural, completely spontaneous, and genuinely interactive. Now, as you actually head into the exam room, your game day strategy is just as important as your vocabulary. Read and listen to those prompts meticulously. Strictly respect the formats and word counts. Seriously, going way over the word count will actually lose you points. During the speaking test, if you don't understand the examiner, ask them to reformulate. It doesn't penalize you at all. It actually proves you know how to manage a real live conversation. And please, always leave 3 to 5 minutes at the end of the writing test to proofread. You've got to catch those silly grammatical errors.
This whole concept is summarized so perfectly by this quote from the guide's author, Sally Asayan. Memorizing flashcards, that's a B1 strategy. To hit C1, you must actively practice these precise structures in realistic, simulated contexts. You need to role-play that apartment rental. You need to actually sit down and write that angry letter to customer service. Context is literally everything here.
Which leaves us with one final thought. That bridge from B2 to C1, it isn't built overnight, for sure, but it is built through daily, targeted execution. You have the exact blueprint in your hands right now. So, what's it going to be? Will you stay comfortable on the B2 plateau, or will you commit to the surgical precision it takes to cross the bridge to C1 today? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you on the next explainer.